beautiful people. I am Oliver Perrin for Semiagog, and this will be an Ask Me Anything episode, but there will be a bit of reflection about my having eaten crow for 4 years, as well as some thoughts about what to expect from Trump going forward, at least some speculation related to possibilities. I should say at the outset that this stream is really for the people who have been following my channel for quite some time, because these events go back 4 years and more to a previous phase of the channel before my old friend Tim died. We did a number of episodes where we made all sorts of predictions amidst all sorts of unbounded speculation. So yeah, I've been a crow eater for 4 years, and now I believe my penance has been done with that full 4 years of having been a crow eater. And so yeah, I'm going to reflect a bit upon all of that and what has come to pass in the intervening time. I'm also going to pour myself a bit of what I like to call apple juice. This time, however, I'm going to try not to spill it down into my computer as I've done in the past. Again, this is a stream for old channel followers, friends, one and all, as far as I'm concerned, even those of you that hate and mock me. Yeah, so please do follow this channel, Semiagog, as well as A Safer Space, which has a bunch of old content. You can follow A Safer Space on YouTube, as well as Semiagog. And I believe videos from both were backed up to BitChute. There is Odyssey as well. As I often say, God help you if you have to use that platform, because half the time the content doesn't load, or at least it didn't when I used to go there. Please do consider purchasing my books. There is a book of poetry, and there is a sci-fi novel. The sci-fi is called Vinculum. It's about a book thief who is pursued by an esoteric sect of assassins, as well as remorseless corporate hitmen. It's set in the year 2076, which grows closer day by day. You can find a link in the description below. There's also my collection of poems, Cinders from the Bloomery of Youth. I recommend both books for those of you who happen to be literate. Yes, and thank you as always to those who follow my channel and support it. Please do follow me also on Twitter, or X as they call it. And I have material content that is up on Substack. I have a Substack now, and there is a part 1 and part 2 of a sort of essay sequence called Defending the Conspiratard. And I believe it's a worthy effort. Some good writing there, in my opinion. But, you know, your mileage may vary. Check it out. See what you think. That Substack is called The Royal Book of Spiritual Chivalry. And so allow me just to have a taste of my apple juice here, and we will jump in. This is going to be loose, informal. That's why it's an AMA. To be honest, it is not exactly 4 years from when I had to eat crow, which was with Biden's inauguration. I plan to come back to this in all likelihood in more detail at that point, because there's still some things that need to, that remain to be seen. Nothing quite like it, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely outstanding. Let me remember to put it down there so that I don't have any little accidents. Okay, so way back when, my friend Tim and I were looking at Trump as he was coming into office shortly after the election. And primarily my friend Tim in the beginning, but I began to come on board with him in terms of his views. And the idea was that there was going to be some sort of reckoning with Trump in office, where people who had been screwing around and fucking up and causing problems were going to be called to account for it. We'll get into that in just a minute, but there were also other aspects, you know, clearing out the intelligence agencies. Again, some other things we'll get into in a moment. But during that time, well, a bit after we started to do that, everyone started drawing parallels with Q. And I made a tweet about this years back, and I managed to find it again on Twitter, and I'm glad, because I had to go to considerable trouble to go watch a bunch of old videos and figure out the dates. But just to answer all that shit about how I was supposedly a Q person, let me cover this here. This is a tweet of mine you can find. It's from November 5th, 2020, which is one of the reasons I was probably doing it at that time is because things were looking bad for Trump or whatever, and I probably put this out at that time in response to shit I was getting at the time. But yeah, it's from November 5th, 2020, and it reads, "An attack against my channel that I sometimes hear from shills is that it's a Q spinoff. For the record, Tim and I speculated about Trump setting traps and about sweeping purges of the Justice Department and intelligence services as early as late November, early December of 2016. Some of those videos are no longer visible on YouTube. I'm just now jumping in because I made them private because of the way Tim talks in a lot of them, which, you know, anyone who's been on YouTube for a long time knows that there were things that you could say, then you couldn't say it, and you had to make those videos private. But two of those videos are still up from a little bit later, March 11th, 2017, and they talk about Obama and Clinton possibly going to jail, which at that time Tim believed was going to happen. So bear in mind, as I write here, that Q didn't even appear until 7 months later, in October of 2017. So the point here is that I was saying this shit, you can call it Q shit, except I said it first. Tim said it first, really. And then I began to be convinced by it. And yeah, and I thought it was going to happen. So the first point is that there's a chronological problem with calling me a Q person. My friend Tim and I set forth these ideas long before the first appearance of Q, which, as best I could tell by doing searches online, the first appearance of so-called Q communications was October of 2017. And as I said, we were talking about this as early as November and December of 2016. And then there are videos from March of 2017 that are still up that can be checked, where we were putting forth these ideas. And yeah, it sounds like I'm trying to defend, you know, this successful game, when in fact it turned out that many, though not all, of the things that we predicted about Trump and what was going to happen under his presidency, they didn't happen at all. So yeah, I own that, and I did own it. At the time, those of you who weren't here, you know, this will bring you up to date or inform you about what was going on at the time. But at the time, people were telling me that we were crazy and that this kind of shit was never going to happen with Trump. And we said, we think it will. But and Tim and I had different predictions. A number of his I went along with, other ones I was kind of like, and we'll talk about them, as I said, in just a minute. But I said specifically that if I was wrong, I would be here and publicly eat it and acknowledge it. And I did when I was wrong. And I caught a bunch of shit for it. I didn't kick people for saying it. I allowed them to come on my channel and gloat. And for the subsequent 4 years, I have kept "I am the eater of crow" on my Twitter profile. In fact, you can see it there now. I believe I will take it down when Trump is inaugurated. Not because it's been proven that I wasn't wrong, but I've done my penance, so to speak, for 4 years. So you'll see a lot of people talking shit on the internet, you know, content creators and the rest, and very few of them admit when they fuck up, and they certainly don't publicly acknowledge it for 4 years. So, you know, it could be worse. So I have not now gone back through all the videos that I did with Tim where he was predicting things, but I've been through a number of them. And it's worth taking a look at. It's worth taking a look at the things, you know, he was predicting at the time. see if I can pull this up here. I've got several. There it is. So going through, I just made some notes. There's stuff like, where is it here? He predicted, and these are videos from, one is from the 1st of November, 2016 called Understanding Trump. I don't remember if it's still live. There's one called The Purge. It's the first of those from March 11th, 2017. Another one is Civil War, the idea that there was some kind of civil war going on within the deeper elements of the U.S. government. That's from April 10th, 2017. And Tim predicted that there would be a purge of the Justice Department and the intelligence services. That didn't happen, but it certainly seems as though aspects of that could happen now. I'm not saying they will. I'm not predicting here, speculation. Tim predicted that people like Obama and Clinton would be brought to justice or held to account in some significant way for the shit that they did. This includes leaks, unmasking, the Russiagate stuff, and a whole lot more. There's just endless shit there. At a minimum, Tim thought that there would be, if there weren't people immediately, or not immediately, explicitly brought to justice and serving sentences, he thought that there would be a lot of quiet retirements where people would scurry away to avoid the coming hammerfall. And there have been a few things like that. What's his name? Is it Andrew McCabe? I can't remember. There are some of those people from the FBI who quietly retired. Comey left. And there was a certain amount of humiliation involved in all of that, although they, had their golden parachutes doing things like becoming, paid news contributors and the rest. But basically that people would avoid the coming hammer blow by bailing out and by making deals. Tim believed that people like Bill Gates would back off and stop putting money behind things for fear of his own ass being on the line. We have not seen that with Gates, though there's still some room, I believe, where you could call that still a possibility. And we certainly have seen rather dramatic about faces from people like Zuckerberg. But the basic idea was that a lot of people would go to jail. Tim believed that people would be called to account for sedition, that they would be indicted for crimes. And we really haven't seen that at all. And Tim believed that specifically that Trump was allowing the Democrats and other deep state operators to show their asses because he knew that it would build resentment, that Trump knew that it would build resentment on the part of the broader public. Basically, Tim said that Trump was giving them enough rope to hang themselves. He made remarks like, "I will sell no wine before it's time." And I think that there's an argument that could be made there. Not claiming it's the case, but some of that seems to have happened. It's at least arguable that people thought that people behind Trump, his backers, and people close to him, there's at least the case that could be made. It's certainly a possibility that they said, "Look, you can't win this. The pressure on you is too strong at the moment. They've fortified the election. You're just going to have to back off. And by the time we come back, the entire country is going to be absolutely fed up with this shit." And Tim did explicitly predict that after it became clear that Trump wasn't going to pull any levers and that it was Biden coming into office. So definitely Tim was wrong about all kinds of things. It still remains to be seen how wrong. Some definitely explicitly, clearly wrong. Obama didn't go to jail. Clinton didn't go to jail. And that was an explicit prediction. But they have been pushed back. They have lost influence beyond simply, being people who are out of office, or it seems so. And who knows what the future holds. He was certainly, as I said, wrong about Hillary and Obama being prosecuted. And it looks like Tim was certainly wrong about the intelligence services backing off because the pressure got to be too great. So, yeah, he was wrong. I didn't back all of these ideas, but I backed some of them and others that aren't getting mentioned here. So I was wrong too, entirely wrong. And I ate my crow for 4 years. But I do remember that when Trump, when it became clear that nothing was going to happen, there was no Patriot plan, the Q people, the storm. When it became clear that that kind of thing wasn't going down, we had Tim came in saying specifically that Trump would back off and that he might come back, and that he was planning this to raise the temperature and again giving them enough rope to hang themselves. And in some respects, it seems like that's what's happened. He's back. I remember distinctly, this is what I had started to say, that when it became clear that Biden was coming into office and Trump was, nothing anymore in terms of holding public office, and it became clear that people were likely to go after him if he stuck his head above the parapet again. I remember all kinds of people on Twitter. Some of them came after me, so to speak, and permissibly so. I'm not saying they shouldn't have or that I'm going to cry about it, but they were like, Trump is totally bullshit. It was nothing but containment the whole time. He's never going to do anything. He never was going to do anything. And anybody who thought that he was is a fool. Well, he's back now. And a number of very interesting things are happening. I'm not saying he's our guy. I'm not saying that it's the second coming in some respect. I'm not saying that there aren't problems. I'm not saying that he's not beholden to certain groups and interests that I would prefer he weren't. But he's back, and a number of things have changed since he disappeared. We had Elon Musk buying X. We've seen a whole lot more crossover from Trump, going purple, as it were, with people like RFK coming in, and that creature, Tulsi Gabbard. Something's going on. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to make any predictions now. I'm going to stick with speculation. But it's not as straightforward as Trump is a lie and was always containment, and anybody who ever thought that there was something going on, there's something very interesting that we've never seen before, that they're fools and they're wrong. And to underscore that, I'm going to point out some of these things that are very interesting that are happening now that suggest that there's more going on with this picture than most people in our circles today seem willing to acknowledge. The first thing is, everybody should remember, it was Brexit first. First, there was Brexit, and it was a really big deal. I remember it happening, and I remember it being very unexpected, and I remember there being very, very high hopes, and that was followed by enormous pushback and opposition and subversion of the entire process. I see Donovan Worland in the house. Good to see you, sir. Then Trump came in, and that made me think we have something going on with Britain and the United States. They're not separate. The fact that these two things happened in close succession, and I still believe this, there's nothing coincidental about that. I'm not a big believer in coincidence. If you want to understand that more, go look at my two-part essay, Defending the Conspiratard, over on my new Substack called The Royal Book of Spiritual Chivalry. And there's also Musk getting involved here now. Musk, who we hear, I believe it's true, has his own little place at Mar-a-Lago that he's renting. So he's there on site when he needs to be. Musk, who is involved with battery technology, automation, AI, and rockets, all things, space tech, low orbit satellite systems that, for example, are being used to enable the communications of the entire Ukrainian army, which has been sicked on Russia at this point, or is defending itself against Russia. But you take my point. The army is being used to grind away Russia. There's no way that Elon Musk does not glow. There's simply no way. It doesn't bother me. I'm not making a moral judgment about it, but that guy has got to be up to his neck in old elements of national security and the intelligence services. There's no way that you become the world's wealthiest man dealing with all this stuff like low Earth orbit satellites, battery technology, all sorts of things that are applicable to military technology and drones, and the application of artificial intelligence for everything from shaping opinion and behavior to more explicit or more kinetic military applications. And this guy Musk, who's like Trump's consigliere at this point, is up to his elbows now in trying to push the AfD in Germany and going after Starmer and the Labour government in the United Kingdom. And so we're seeing a thing again with the United States and the United Kingdom and some sort of deeper relationship there. Things going on behind the scenes. There's something more going on here. And for people who just continue to insist that no, Trump is just a whatever, it's just more containment and red meat for people to chew on while they continue to get screwed. Maybe so, but there are clearly competing forces. They're absolutely competing forces, which goes back to Tim's old idea of some sort of end mine, of some sort of civil war going on within the permanent establishment, or the up until now seemingly permanent establishment. So there's something real happening here. I don't know what it is. I have guesses, and I'll get into some of them a bit. But there's something else going on here. There's something else going on here, and I don't believe that at this point that it's fair to say that Tim and I were entirely wrong. He's back. Whether or not he will deliver upon his previous or his more recent promises remains to be seen. But if he really were just some sort of fixture and all of this was kayfabe and there wasn't real competition going on, you would not see the kind of freakouts that you're seeing. In particular with people like, who is it, Thierry Breton, in France, has just now come out and said that if the EU leadership in Brussels can't do anything about Musk and these other things and problematic elections directly, then France will act on its own, and we will see them shut down elections. I think Thierry Breton said specifically that that the EU had done it once, or that they had done it once before with Romania, and they would do it again in Germany if necessary. And so there's shit going down. There are people who stand to win, and there are people who stand to lose. In some sense that is more significant than the usual shuffling of saying, well, you only get 1/4 of the pie now because you're not, your party isn't currently in power. So you still get 1/4 of the pie. We get 3/4 of the goodies, and we'll still drive the sort of uniparty trajectory, the uniparty agenda. There's something more than that going on here. There are people who really stand to lose. So, yeah. What does all of it mean? I'm not sure. But I'll get into some ideas about it. And I'm wondering if now is the time for me to do that. Let me just scroll through here and see if there's anything in the comments here that I need to pay attention to or respond to. in some sense where it's appropriate. In some sense, because what was I'm trying to smoke and think and read comments and speak at the same time. Basically, I'm looking through the comments to figure out whether or not there is anything in here that is relevant to what I was just saying that I should address now. It's good. I'm seeing people say that they used to watch Tim and me back in the day. I'm glad to see people from back in the day in here. Actually, a number of people, old people who are channel followers. Yeah, Charlemagne in the house. Let's see. Let's see here. Someone's saying that Tim started listening to Q drops. What? My point was that the entire thing, I don't know what that's about. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. But again, what we were saying, we said it long before Q did. Both of us appear to have been wrong. The question is, how wrong? I do see the point made that things take longer than is expected. Also, when you're in a fight or a conflict or a competition, the enemy gets a vote, so to speak. Everything doesn't always happen like you think it's going to. All right, let me see here. It's going to be too hard to go back through this right now. So yeah, let me jump over here and look at some of the things I'm thinking about now, because this still is really a bit premature about Trump. It may be that he comes into office and it's just, an endless series of, sort of flatulent half events, and that nothing happens, because nothing ever happens, but I still don't think so. And I think it's important that he's back. I'm not saying he's my friend. This is elite competition. I'm not saying he's our guy. I'm not saying he's doing any of these things on behalf of the American public or the public anywhere else, though I still do tend to think that that he cares more in some senses about at least doing something for the American public than anyone who's been in office for quite some time. All right. One thing that seems very clear to me is that there's this shit going on. Well, let's say there are two things. One, I think that we're going to see, this is speculation, not a prediction, but I do at present think my favorite hypothesis is, rather than my prediction, my favorite hypothesis as I speculate is that we're going to see two major things happen. One has to do with the United States, Europe, NATO, and Russia. And obviously, it doesn't take any kind of super genius to figure that out. These are things that are going to have to be resolved, major sources of tension and conflict that are going to have to be addressed. We'll get to that in a minute. Another thing that I think is going on is that, I love cigarettes. Another thing that I think is going on is that there's going to be some kind of retrenchment, and that it is centered as a kind of fallback position on this idea of the Anglosphere and the Five Eyes countries, the former imperial possessions of the British Empire and the United States, which is itself, of course, a former imperial possession. At least parts of it were. So you have this idea of multipolarity that everybody likes to talk about. And it does seem clear that the United States is no longer in a position to be the sole hegemon, or the most powerful, power in the world that can kind of have its will to whatever extent it can or could. For example, in the period from the early 90s through to, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago. That's changed. And if you can't make that reach, if you can't reach and grab it all, seize it all, well, then, especially in circumstances such as we see here, where Russia has reasserted itself, it is far more than a gas station with nuclear missiles or whatever. And as China continues to assert itself, India's in the background, other countries like that. There is some kind of multipolarity. I think these new words that are en vogue, like multipolarity, they're irritating, but they've come into use because they do shorthand aspects that do seem to be apparent. And so if you reach for all of it and try to grab it and make it yours to become Lord of all under heaven, as it were, and you fail, or you fail in the next step towards that would have been promising, for example, causing Russia to fall, then you've got to fall back. And particularly with the economic problems that seem to be on the immediate horizon, some sort of economic retrenchment is necessary. And you would have to have some sort of strategic fallback position. And short of being able to grab it all and tell everyone that they either do what we want or get fucked, my way or the highway type stuff that the United States has been doing for so long, the obvious fallback position that has a number of strengths is to fall back on the United States, Canada, Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. And there's, a lot of people have been thinking about that for quite some time. You'll find it in the Carol Quigley stuff and others like Quincy Ho, the roundtable group, early ideas being put forth by people like Rhodes. And it does seem to me a little bit more than likely to be a coincidence that you've now got a South African who is spearheading this movement to shake things up in Britain and also to break some of the log jams in terms of power politics on the continent. So a fallback position would be to, put the United States and Great Britain together and then get Canada online and then move from there. Again, it's just my currently favored hypothesis, move from there to bringing Australia and New Zealand online again. And if you do that while keeping Japan, relationships with Japan and with South Korea, all of this is basically extensions of old British imperial policy, back in the days when they were trying to figure out whether or not it would be best to make the United States the policeman in the Pacific, in the days of Teddy Roosevelt when that all came online, or alternatively Japan. In the end, they ended up using both of them. I think that there's going to be some kind of fallback on that sort of thing, on the Five Eyes countries. And that's going to require getting control again of the intelligence services in the United States, or using them to get control of competing factions within them. None of them are monolithic. Even single agencies, I think that there are very real factions. So I think that that's one thing that's going on. And so with the idea of having to fall back from having tried to seize it all, and then having to retreat and retrench economically, as well as to secure resources and strengthen one's own regional position, I think that explains talk about Greenland. And, people who've been following my channel for a while know that Tim and I talked about Greenland back in the day during Trump's first term when he was talking about going after Greenland. I think that accounts for stuff with Greenland, attempts to sort of throw U.S. weight around to shift things in Canada. And I think that accounts for the business of the Panama Canal talk that we're hearing out of Trump. My friend Tim told me back in the day that, the Darien Gap is something that has long been considered of strategic importance in the United States. We've got all these people flowing up from South and Central America. Well, if you take back the canal zone, then it's a pretty straightforward thing to say, this is the canal zone. It's got its own security. The canal literally cuts its way across all of the land, which means that You simply have military and security forces defending the canal zone, and you don't even have to get down into the Darien Gap. You can just cut it right there because it's actually narrower there than it is with the Darien Gap a little bit further south. Though, of course, the Darien Gap is rougher country, and the Pan American Highway at present doesn't cut through it. They've got, as they like to say, rat lines of people coming up, though. So, wow, proud white settler in here, too. Corbin, all kinds of people from back in the day. Very happy to see you all. I think that there's going to be something happening there where there's this fallback position of the Anglosphere countries for the United States. And things like Greenland, you've got massive mineral resources there. You've got more of a presence in the Arctic if you can do something with that. You also remove that set of resources from being directly in the control, more or less, of an EU country there, because it's Denmark's possession, at least on paper. So yeah, I think that's what's going on there. So we see somebody like Musk hammering Canada and yielding immediate changes there. Trudeau, at least superficially, but it is significant, I think, that before Trump has even taken office, Trudeau has resigned. The Europeans are freaking the fuck out. And we've got, as I said earlier, Musk going after Britain and Germany. And I think we're probably going to see some things happening with France. So we shall see. But that's not a prediction. These are my favorite hypotheses at the moment. I've eaten enough crow. So yeah, that's one angle, which is this business with the Anglosphere, Anglophone countries. And there's this business of falling back on the Panama Canal and the rest, gaining more resources and the rest, fortifying, so to speak, the U.S. position. But then there's this whole thing, to come back to the other one I wanted to talk about that I mentioned at the outset, this business of having to come sort of some resolution with NATO, with the global security structure, as Putin always talks about, that we need to have some talk about the global security architecture. Sorry, that was the expression. The business with what's going on with the Ukraine war. And that's where I think things are very interesting. Again, I'm not making predictions here, but, we've heard, as I said, Trump talking about Greenland, Panama Canal, Canada. Again, it's not the first time that Trump has talked about Greenland. We've got this business with economic retrenchment, the United States having to fall back to a more defensible position to confront multipolarity, as well as the coming serious problems economically on the horizon. Many people have talked about how people who are against Trump, who have power, may well be in a position to embarrass him greatly and screw him by pulling levers that cause real economic problems. But what's interesting is, we know that Trump and Putin have got to cut some kind of deal on Ukraine. We know that the Europeans, who have done this for some time, are still now talking about how they're going to have to create their own army, that they can't rely on the United States anymore. You've got people like Alexander Mercouris talking about how trying to make a deal with Putin at this point will be difficult, because Putin would have to recognize that the United States can always turn around and disavow any deal later under a new administration and continue to expand NATO. So, on what basis would you come to some resolution, a negotiated resolution in Ukraine at this point? How could the U.S. force or cause that to happen now, when any guarantee they give would be very much in question? I mean, we told them back in the early 90s that, we weren't even going to expand NATO further east than Germany, even into Eastern Germany. But I think that with this situation of possible retreat, this situation of regional consolidation of U.S. power within its own sphere, I think we should pay attention to all this EU talk about, you know, them saying that they have to take care of their own defense. People are usually focused on what kind of stick Trump could wave at Russia, but that's already failed. As we've seen, failed pretty spectacularly too. People don't think about enough about what kind of carrot can be offered. One such carrot could be the dissolution of NATO. And some people have talked about that. I'm not the first person to have mentioned it. Many have. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But if NATO is shut down, there's a lot less to worry about in terms of the U.S. turning around on its agreement and pushing eastward again. After all, they'd have to resurrect NATO first. Another angle would be bringing Russia itself into NATO. Russia in the past asked to be a part of NATO, and it was refused. So I'm not saying that NATO is going to be dissolved. I'm not saying that Russia is going to be admitted to NATO, but in my view, these are possibilities worth thinking about. Even if, you know, this kind of speculation should be dismissed as too outlandish, it's useful, I think, to get serious in considering possible carrots rather than just about possible sticks. We've just been through several bloody years of trying to use a stick on Russia, and thus far, it hasn't worked. And, you know, again, Putin is himself talking about the need for a new security architecture in Europe. So maybe there could be some new thing that includes Russia. I don't know. But those are two ways that you could offer a carrot big enough. If Russia becomes a part of NATO, I could see where Putin would say, yeah, that could be something there. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Or if NATO were dissolved, I could see where both of those things could remove the major concern about the U.S. Turning around on it. So, you know, we have to look at these things and try to put together a larger picture. What's happening? Like, who are the factions? I don't know. But it does seem that the Clinton, Obama, Trudeau, you know, EU, Brussels, Schultz, this whole crew, your Jacinda Ardern's, you know, they seem to be a block. And this has been going, all this shit has been happening for some time. Everyone should remember that before Trump was even in office, it was that he was working with Russia, which gave you the pretext to go after Russia. And as soon as Trump went anywhere near Ukraine, there was a massive freak out and new calls for impeachment. I mean, somebody has been planning to do this shit with Russia and Ukraine and, you know, all the rest of it since well before the Maidan stuff. This shit has been going on since 2008 and earlier. And it really starts with when the first Clinton group came in, you know, Bill, Slick Willie. And there always has been this tie, you know, this idea, the European idea that you should bring in technocrats, that only technocrats who've been trained to lead can be trusted to lead. The Clinton people were very much of that stripe, you know, the permanent bureaucracy. They've been in power for a while, and it looks like they really wanted to get the EU on a solid foundation. And in order to do that, you have to have two things. You have to have security and you have to have energy. And they love the idea of having US taxpayers cover their security expenses, which we've been doing for decades. And the real problem they have is energy. They're not on a solid security footing as long as they get their energy from Russia, especially if they want to be expansionistic and seek to exploit Russia, break it down, and seize its resources. So they need energy and they need security. Well, this whole Ukraine adventure gives them both. Well, it certainly gives them renewed wind in the sails for NATO. As I've talked about in the past, other people have seen it too. Even if there's a total loss there on NATO's part, they've resurrected the Russian boogeyman. Now there's a reason for everyone to have to get together and stick together. NATO becomes more important than ever. It never lost its usefulness, and now we're just being reminded of why it's so important that we have it. And by the way, we used up all your old Warsaw Pact shit, which means we can get you all on military standards that are shared, 5.56 instead of 7.62. And we just so happen to have the people who can sell you that shit, most of them in the US, but, Sweden will get a piece of it. Germany might get a piece of it. So the Ukraine adventure certainly seems to support and renew this notion of NATO and why it's so important that it's there. And, we've just added new members, Finland and Sweden. There's that aspect. But Europe also needs energy. And I believe that that was what Ukraine was for. Plenty of Black Sea energy. The more you dig into how much energy is likely to be there in the Black Sea, the more you find out lots, and not all of it gets press, though some of it is discussed with recent Turkish finds and stuff that's been prospected, off Crimea. There's also all the mineral resources and the mining and the coke and the lithium and all kinds of other shit in Ukraine, as well as the exquisite farmland, probably the best in the world, associated with the Ukrainian shield. One of the last parts of the Earth's crust from ancient times, really ancient times, that's still on the surface, that hasn't subducted, which is why you get soil, black, rich soil that's meters deep there. So I think that's what was going on. So now we come to this thing where some sort of resolution has got to be reached in Europe with the United States and Russia, and what the future is going to be there and where they're going to get their energy. Trump came in and said, we can be friends with Russia. He's barely in office at all. And they're like, he's working with Russia. He must be stopped. He has to be shut down. Shut it down. He's working with Russia. And then he goes after Ukraine. They're like, what? No. There is a real conflict happening here. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but these are some central issues, and we see the game starting up again, and many of the same elements are in place. I don't just think it's wishful thinking. There is a conflict between real parties, and the outcome matters very much for many of the players involved. So it's not all kayfabe. It's not all some sort of shadow puppet show. So yeah, these are things that I'm thinking about. I'm going to want to come back to this. Hopefully I will have some interesting new things to say by the time of the inauguration. I should also point out that I hope to do a stream. Let me look on the calendar here with Hitman, who has his own channel, and that will be on Tuesday, the 21st of this month, 21st of January. I'm going to be talking to him. We're going to be looking at Carol Quigley. That is his name, right? I'm not screwing up saying Quigley. I was talking about Quigley Down Under earlier, and I can't get the shit straight in my mind. But yeah, the basic idea of there being, Anglo powers that have exerted influence in the United States, and it's not just this one-sided arrangement like people like Academic Agent like to say, where the U.S. is just making everyone do everything. It's just bending everyone to their will, and it's the source of the gay, which I think is a superficial take, one that that should be balanced by a better understanding of history and an honest recognition of the fact that the city of London is still a castle. It's a power center, and people who've been planning longer and saving longer and building their power for longer are generally more powerful than ones who arrived later, and who have to learn their systems from those who were there before. So yeah, I'm going to be talking with Hitman about some of the Carol Quigley stuff and the Anglo-American establishment, the book, and some other aspects of that. So anyone who wants to check that out, it's coming up on the 21st on Hitman's channel. So yeah, these are some of the things that I wanted to throw out there. I've got some other shit that I could get into that I have some notes about that are interesting. I guess one of them I'll just talk about here to get it out, and then I will go to questions. I'm sorry I have not been looking at the chat at this point. I hope people with mod wrenches are throwing people out if they're assholes or saying shit that will cause problems for my channel. There's a lot going on with energy and Europe, and it's been an issue for a long time. As soon as I started to look into Russian pipelines running into Europe to provide them with energy, I was surprised at how far back it goes. In the 1960s, you had wealthy Germans, German industrialists and the rest, working with Russia to bring pipelines into Germany. And for people who don't understand how important this shit is for putting Europe on a solid footing, I mean, remember that Hitler had to go into the Caucasus. The German army had to go into the Caucasus in World War II just to try to get their hands on a source of energy. There are real problems there with that. And no country can be on a solid footing unless it controls access to the amount of energy necessary to keep its shit running. And yeah, there's this whole thing of Europe getting its energy from Russia is not some recent thing with the Nord Stream pipelines. It's not some recent thing with the age of pipelines in the 90s and them crossing Ukraine and all the rest. This stuff has been going on for a long time. And the more I looked into it, I saw that, the idea of nuclear energy in Europe was pushed by the United States. The United States was there to help Europe with nuclear power, atomic energy. Specifically because they wanted to keep Russia out, and they wanted to ensure that Europe would not be dependent on Russia for its energy needs. And then this weird shit happened with Chernobyl. And, I can't prove it. I could be wrong. But it's weird, this shit happened with Chernobyl. And then everyone suddenly stopped talking about nuclear power. They like to bring up 3 Mile Island too, but there wasn't that much going on with 3 Mile Island. There was a big push, though, to absolutely shut down nuclear power. And who did it benefit the most? Cui bono. When you really think about Chernobyl, really think about it, not be, inclined to go down the well-rutted, in both respects, paths of thought that have been provided to us. The biggest winner, the Chernobyl meltdown, was Russia. Because all of Europe said, oh, we can't, well, not all of Europe. The French kept a number of their reactors and the Germans and the rest. But the desire for nuclear energy really got pushed down. And everybody said, no, let's just bring in gas. This shit's too dangerous. We can't have this. Wow. Area under Russian control has a meltdown, and then things just get better for Russia in terms of selling energy. I'm a little bit suspicious. I tend to see conspiracies everywhere. I'm a conspiratard, but I think that's interesting. Yeah, and you understand that Russian energy exports to Europe didn't begin after the fall of the USSR. They were planned and developed in the 1960s and 70s based on German-Soviet cooperation and investment. Right? Anyway, just an idea of mine that I've wanted to put out there. And now we're seeing the same kind of shit happen. Now they're like blowing up Russian pipelines that go into Europe or cutting them off. And now there's a whole lot of talk of bringing nuclear power back and more expensive LNG and the rest. But I dug a little bit into what's going on with nuclear power at present. And there are a number of nuclear power plants under development. not just in Poland, which is a big exception to the rule of not being into nuclear power. The Poles are looking at it very seriously, and there's a lot of development going on there, but elsewhere as well. Just another thing that I wanted to throw in there in terms of this this whole picture of Europe being on a solid security footing, and Europe being on a solid energy footing, and the way in which those things are related. So, yeah, I say at this point, since we're coming up on 1 hour, that that I take questions now and just talk to. I see so many people who followed the channel back in the day, and I haven't seen them in a while. Probably my own fault, because I've been busy getting married and trying to get my life sorted. Yeah, so I think at this point, I should take questions. But you have a moment, and before that happens, because I'm going to pour myself a little bit more apple juice. Please do, when you ask questions, put @Semiagog in there. Oh, I see Noah Solomon in the house. Hello, sir. Very happy to see you. As I told the Hitman, I'll have to tell you as well, I'm no expert on Quigley. I've only read, I'm now finishing one of his books, The Anglo-American Establishment. And then there is also one that was recommended to me by Rupert August. Great guy. He's been a guest on the channel before. It's called, it's by Quincy Ho, and it's called England Expects Every American to do his duty. Yeah, and there's another one that's from the mid-century period there, written by someone who's obviously pro-German, an American. Somebody, Conrad. I have to dig them out again. So I'm not an expert in any sense, or even that familiar with Carroll Quigley's stuff. But I have thought long and hard on my own about the idea that Britain has historically and does currently exert more control in the United States than most people think. I've thought quite a bit about that myself. And so for me, Quigley is sort of like a pretext, an excuse, an opportunity for me to talk more broadly about these basic ideas, because I arrived at that idea myself. I didn't get it from reading Quigley. But after I came to those conclusions myself, I said, I ought to go looking to see if anyone has ever talked about this. And yeah. Okay. So yes. Noah Solomon. Thank you, sir. Yes. And I mentioned the podcast will come up on the 21st. Hopefully I'll be properly prepared. Let me pull this pop-out chat over here so I can see who's saying what. FB Informant says, thoughts on German elections coming up. I can't tell you anything more than most people would already have observed who pay any attention to it at all. It looks like the AfD has its own internal power struggles going on. There are more moderate factions, and from our perspective, more based factions. There's that old adage about, nothing destroys you like success. And I think we're going to see some struggles within that organization based on those problems that come with success, where you want to make yourself accessible to more and more people, like having a lesbian in charge, or a lesbian figurehead who's got someone from the Indian subcontinent, if I remember correctly, as a mate. It can get worse than that. Many of you have probably seen the Alice Vidal and Elon Musk discussion, which was just, there's a whole lot of cringy shit in there. But in terms of the broader German public, in order to build support, maybe it needs to be a lesbian with someone from the Indian subcontinent as a mate. Maybe they need to be people who constantly talk about green energy and this kind of nonsense. They're like, well, The goal should be to reduce carbon content. It's just that we need to diversify on our way to reducing our carbon footprint. Maybe that's what's required in order to make shit happen in Germany. I don't know. But as other people have observed, they're somewhere around 20% and climbing, maybe 20, 21, 22% from what the polling shows. That's not going to be enough to govern on their own, and all the other parties have shown that they are willing to circle the wagons and block them out, just as they tried to do in Austria with what's his name, Kickel. But I think there have been some developments in Austria that are encouraging. I haven't followed it, so I shouldn't speak on it. And I think that in Germany, you could see AfD get more support than it seems they have at the moment. You could also see maybe somebody like Wagenknecht with her party that came out of the left party, De Linke or whatever. I think her party would at least be willing to make common cause. I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm no expert on this. I think her party would, though, be willing to make common cause with AfD if it was something specifically like ending the Ukraine war. So, yeah, I don't know. But as I said at the outset of this, when I was getting started, you have people like Thierry Breton in France, a former EU technocrat. I think he was like something Minister of Interior Markets or something like that on French television, saying that the EU had successfully shut down elections that had been interfered with in Romania, and that they'd do it again if they had to in Germany. So, once again, there's real shit going on. This is a real struggle, and there stand to be real winners and real losers, depending on how things fall out. So, yeah, that's the best I can do for you, FB Informant. Let's see who's next up here. Comment about the Quickly Down Under movie. We'll leave that be at the moment. Yeah, it was subversive. There was also some weird half crazy woman that the Tom Selleck character was into. It's just very strange. Watching those old movies now, they just scream their age. They scream their time. They scream their period and its perversities and psychoses. All this women's lib shit. I just, By the way, man, all the women in security, law enforcement, with very few exceptions, security, law enforcement, the military, they all have to go back. It doesn't have to be the kitchen, but it could be. But they have to fucking go back. They all have to go back. It's civilization destroying this bullshit of, female firefighters and, special applications, vice squads with undercover. You need some women in there. Intelligence services, yes, there's going to be a need for them as agents. And maybe, with the police, there's this usefulness of having a woman who can frisk women, or a woman as a hostage negotiator. But in general, firemen and cops and soldiers, they should be fucking men. Nobody asked me. Sorry. Daniel Robinson says, nobody talks about Latin America, but it really is a free-for-all down there. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I don't follow it. So, mea maxima culpa, because it is important. It's another area, but I think, for me and for most of the people in my crew, we're looking at what is happening in the Northern Hemisphere, though with multipolarity, as they call it, coming online. It's going to be increasingly important for the United States to pay attention to what's going on in our hemisphere, which includes South and Central America. Dawn Browning, Field Marshal Browning, good to see you, Miss Lady, says, is Mrs. Rudisil managing? As a matter of fact, yes, and I spoke with her today. I talk with her almost every week, and she's staying warm. And yeah, what else is she doing? She's staying in for the moment, and And yeah, she and my wife like to talk about their seed catalogs and how much they both love making dirt and digging holes. Yeah, this whole woman gardening thing, I got to take my truck and come back with about a ton of soil for my wife. I wanted one. I said I wanted a wife. Now I have one. Wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, Alabaster, Semigog, do you think in terms of geopolitics that Greenland, that Musk causing some chaos is directly connected? Well, yes. I think I covered some of that in what was being discussed earlier. You know, if you're going to fall back on this U.S. position, it'd be great if you had a whole new vast source of mineral wealth, as well as a better foothold in the Arctic. You know, there are really two entrances to the Arctic. There's the narrow one with the Bering Strait, and then there's sort of this scattered group of them with the Northwest Passage and with Iceland and the North Sea, and then on over to the Baltic. Or not the Baltic, but, you know, where Norway juts out there, that big open area. And Greenland gives the U.S. a purchase there, even if Canada doesn't want to play ball. So, yeah, economic retrenchment, the Doge thing of taking care of cutting off fat and waste, as well as geopolitical, geostrategic aspects. Yeah. What else we hear? Oh, sorry. Alabaster is saying causing some chaos is directly connected. Chaos in the UK political system. I don't know how much the UK would have to do with Greenland. So yeah, that part I don't know about, Alabaster. I'm sorry to say. Serena Butler, a question: any formal organization on the horizon with South American populists like Bukele, that is on remigration or trade or whatever? I don't know, because I do not follow goings on in Latin America closely enough. I barely follow them at all. I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, so yeah, I wish I knew more. Noah Solomon says, will Light and Darkness continue, and will it eventually cover the Carbonari? I got in touch with Anteos and asked him about it, and he seemed to be willing to consider it in future, but I think he is busy with other things, and I would not hold my breath. I would love to have him back on. Love that series, want to see it continue, but he has not thus far shown much interest. But if you want, well, I don't know if you can find him on Twitter. It may or may not be, who knows, that he has another account on there now. But if he did, I wouldn't want to call him out. Yeah, but see if you can find his old account. I've already done what I can to interest him, and it would be rude at this point for me to push him further. I'm certainly grateful for the episodes he has done with me thus far. A mounted patrolman says, hello, by the way. It's been a while. Says we need Elon Musk to start watching me. No, he's not going to like me. And one of those guys, Mark Andreessen or whatever, has me blocked, and I never had any interaction with him. I can't call him what I want to, since this is broadcasting to YouTube also. I do love cigarettes. All right, what else do we have here? Semigog, what is your ideal truck for Midwest USA? I don't know. I mean, I'd love to have, what was that one that Stricture just posted? Bog Beef? What was it? A trail? You're going to make me look now. I loved it. It looked fucking hot. I'm not familiar with the model until I had seen it. It sort of looks like a Bronco, but a little bit longer, a little bit wider. Loved it. I have to get past his posts about whether or not white chili is real or just a, where is it? No, that isn't it. It was a Dodge. Yeah, it was some kind of Dodge, was it? Or no, it was a, look at you asking me what my favorite truck would be for the Midwest USA. I don't know, like an old 60s Ford. A friend of mine's got one that he's rebuilding. Yes, this one. I'd never seen it before. 1979 Plymouth Trail Duster. The Plymouth version of the Dodge Ram Charger. Man, that thing looked fucking hot. I got a little bit of wood. I did, just looking at it. You can see it in a stricture post at Bog Beef, January 11th. But otherwise, I mean, I'd take a Tacoma. I'd take a Tundra. I mean, I'd take any one of these new trucks. I've just got a fucking Avalanche, which is really like an SUV pretending to be a truck, but I still like it. Strange. I still like that truck though. Sloppy Joe Stalin says, cheers, bud. Get your X monetization since you had that viral Babylon B tweet. That ain't going to happen, man. If I look over here at my analytics, I think you have to have some millions, and that thing didn't even hit 400,000. So I think you have to have a certain number of millions in a month. And yeah, even in a 2-month period with that tweet that got picked up, I've got 733,000 impressions. I'm a nobody. I'm a nothing. I also think I'm downranked on Twitter, although it might be my fault, honestly, because I post pictures of pie and I use all sorts of curse words. Yeah, I'm constantly posting my wife's food. You know, I'm never going to become famous. Okay. Alabaster says, Semigog thoughts on Rupert Lowe, presumably adopting Steve Law's position on remigration. Is that all theater, or is this pressure legitimate in building? You know, I've tried to make judgments about what's going on in Britain, and every time I think I've gotten a grasp on what's actually happening there, I don't know, man. I'm not there. I'm not a Brit. I don't know how to read those people. One of the most important things that needs to happen is that Americans finally understand that just because we almost speak the same language, you know, we shouldn't assume that we're capable of understanding each other, because the class issues and the fear of seeming impolite or, you know, creating controversy on the part of Brits is something I can't grok it. Also, I'm pissed off, man. When I say grok, I want it to be fucking Heinlein. The moon is a harsh mistress. And now when I say grok, everybody thinks about fucking X. It's like Tesla. Like, I want to talk about the crazy, you know, whoever claims him, General Yugoslav area, Croat or Serb or whatever he was. But no, it's been branded. Think about how the Tuareg feel after, you know, Volkswagen named a car after their people. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know what is going on in Britain, and I hesitate to make a guess about it because I don't understand the Brits. I really don't. I don't. Big Brain Content says, Semigog, I loved your work with AM. Any more with him in the future? Well, I always hope so, and I'm glad you brought him up. Everybody should follow Apostolic Majesty's channel. Search Apostolic Majesty on YouTube. His content, unlike mine, the vast majority of it is timeless, because he looks at historical periods, most of which are far enough in the past that you don't have to worry about it being something that appears on the news radar and then disappears again just as quickly. He's a great guy. Love talking to him. And last I spoke with him, you know, the opportunity was still there for us to collaborate in future on streams. And we have a sort of loose arrangement where he thinks of an idea, or I do, and we discuss it on his channel or mine. So I have every reason to hope so. Charlemagne Toyota Tacoma. Yes, and I had a Tacoma. Loved it. Great fucking truck. Mine was a 2001, so I don't know what the new ones are like, but I love them. Great truck. Great fucking truck. Love to have one now. Although, to be honest, I like bigger trucks now. Just love being up in the air with a big ass fucking truck, man. Okay. What is next? Remember, folks, I'm just looking here at I am just looking here at Oh, I see King Pilled in the house too, man. I want to recommend his channel as well as my friend Charlemagne. Also, let me give King Pilled a wrench. Just a second. Yes. Happy to see you here. Everybody check out King Pilled's channel too, as well as my buddy Charlemagne. Okay, so remember, if you want to ask me questions, put at Semiagog. Mounted Patrolman at Semiagog, you get a free premium if you have over 25,000 followers. Hot dog. Well, let me see if I get to it. I crawl forward at a snail's pace there in terms of my followers. Okay. What else here? Alabaster says, Semiagog, my daughter is a dual national with them, so I'm trying my best to get a picture of it. It's her birthright, damn it. Yeah, well, oof. I don't know. I don't understand Brits, man. I don't understand them. I don't. There's so much going on with their class strata. And I'm not saying that we don't have class issues in the United States. We just lie to ourselves so thoroughly about it that it's alien to us to understand, any of that. Let's see here. Next. MG at Semiagog. Do I ever watch Judge Napolitano? Yes, I do. Really, the only one that I like there is Alistair Crook is interesting as the old spook that he is. McGregor is good. Crook is usually the most interesting. And that guy, Gilbert Doctorow, is actually more perceptive than it might appear at first. However, if you want the Judge Napolitano group without like Karen Kwiatkowski or whatever, and there is another channel called Dialogue Works, run by I think a Persian, and it has a lot of the same people on. And when they're talking to you, like Dr. O, they do not get interrupted as often with stupid questions from Napolitano, who really is like he's got to be like a 125 IQ. He gets annoying. So check out Dialogue Works. I'm not endorsing the channel. It's the same group of what are fundamentally leftists, but it has a lot of the same people from Judge Napolitano, and there's more content coming through with it. All of Judge Napolitano is stable. They're all, with the possible exception of like a center-right McGregor, they're all leftists. It's a channel full of fucking leftists. All right, what's next? All right. You guys are too busy fucking talking to each other and not asking me questions. I'm going to have another sip of my drink, and we'll see if anything else comes through here. Well, I'll tell you, actually, Max MG points out about Max Blumenthal. Actually, Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal, despite what they are, and I know what they are, in terms of their orientation, ideology, and, the rest, they're at least solid sources of information who are intelligent. So I don't mind them nearly as much as like Scott Ritter fucking drives me up a wall. But yeah. Okay. Wow, how the hell do I fucking say this? Shalashasnya. Semiagog with the drone spooking, Luigi Tesla bomber, and New Orleans van of peace, intel agency and military industrial complex looking for Patriot Act 2.0 and the war on the home front to make up for lack abroad. I'm trying to turn that into a sentence with a subject and a predicate. I guess it's a question. You're saying that with all this shit that's happening, is it the intelligencies trying to create a war on the home front to make up for a lack of there is a war abroad. But I guess the basic question is it just a bunch of people trying to raise hell here in order to, affect their will. Yeah, that's always going on. But I have my questions though. Like if you look at the California fires and the cui bono, if it's not just something that happened, that shit helps Trump, and in many respects us, more than anyone else. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. If dirty, scurrilous intelligence agencies started to actually do things that would help us rather than fuck us. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. Alabaster says, at Semiagog, what do you think Trump's position on the inevitable Sunni Syria takeover will be? I don't know if anything's inevitable in Syria. There are all kinds of things that could happen there. It's a mess. Everybody's like, well, the country's partitioned now. The country's been partitioned for 10-ish, a decade or so. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on there. It's, the whole idea that there was a Syria. Yes, there was a Syria with borders and an army and a, state control and everything. But it's a wildly heterogeneous population. I mean, it's as crazy in terms of how mixed up it is as Lebanon. So I'm not making any predictions about what the fuck's going to go on in Syria. Although I do tend to agree with people who think that it is a win, certainly in the short term for Israel, but medium and long term, I think it's a situation where Israel is, in many respects, overextended. Charlemagne says people have tagged me with stuff. Yes, I'm seeing it now. Although maybe maybe not everything shows up with the orange tag around it. Let's see here. So where was I? So AA says, if money was no object, where would you live and why? Well, I mean, I'm happy where I am, and money is an object. So I guess that's part of being old and married now. I am where I am, and I don't want to move ever again. So I'm trying to train myself to be satisfied where I am, because the great reward for me is that by not moving, I can watch everything grow and change around me in my place. Shawnee Max says, Semiagog, did you have any thoughts on that 100 books list that was trending the other day? I don't know it. I did not see it. And so Robert McDonald, hello, sir, says, Semiagog, what was the 2024 butter bill total? Well, it was only for part of the year, because the frog only came over in, was it May or something? So May, June, July, August, September, October. So it's not even a full year. But last I totaled it up, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $800, maybe $1,000 a year in butter. Okay, Daniel Robinson, Semiagogs, are you reading any good books? Yes, I have to go back and finish the damn Quigley thing before I talk to Hitman. Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't read because the light bothers my wife, so I have to buy some sort of reading lamp, because most of the reading, I mean, I will start reading out here in the shop, but it's fucking cold. I have a propane heater that's out. But yeah, I like to read each night before I go to sleep, and I can't because it will wake her up. So for a while, I was wearing a headlamp on the red light, but that just gets a little bit weird. That's a little surreal when you're in bed with red light, like you're checking out a map before you raid a trench. I need to get a good bedside lantern with directed light. I just refuse to get one of those little rechargeable clip-on book lights. That's just so yeah, none at present. Although, as you can see, that's the most ironic thing of all. I'm finally in the woods with a big ass library, and I can't fucking read. Yeah. Noah Solomon says, Semiagog, is that apple juice or have you upped your game to rye? It's still bourbon. Yes. But I'll suck down the rye too. My problem is I'm getting into cognac now, and I need to make more money if I want to drink that regularly in the amounts that I enjoy my whiskey. God damn, it is good. All right, next question. AA says, Semiagog, what are your thoughts on Christopher Hitchens as a polemicist and a public intellectual? I don't know, man. He's got this whole Eeyore thing, oh, everything's screwed and everyone should have listened to me because I was first. I don't know. He's an intelligent man, and I'm sure he did good work in the past. I'm not a Brit, so I don't have to. Oh, I'm sorry. Christopher Hitchens. Which one is the one who's dead now? Peter Hitchens is the one who's still alive. Yeah, Christopher Hitchens. He was interesting, but I don't know. You should ask a Brit about him. I never followed him closely. Yes, he was bright. It was kind of shocking to see what a drunk he was and how drunk he would be even when public speaking. But yeah, I don't know enough about him. King Pilled says, Semiagog, given how much geopolitical jockeying pertains to energy, such developments will drastically change incentive structures. Whether it happens slowly, quickly, depends on how bad things get. Yes. Yes, I agree. I don't know what to say about that, except I think that there is a good chance that we're going to see quite a bit of nuclear energy getting developed, at least in Europe. And we'll see how much elsewhere. Each one of these different aspects, as I'm sure you know very well, that apply to geopolitics and, great game strategy. Each one of these aspects requires sort of your own monitoring in order to stay up with it. If you want to keep up with, what kind of military activities are going on, that's one thing. Then there's military tech, which pertains to that. Then there's global logistics and trade. And then there's energy and pipelines. And it gets a bit difficult to keep up with. So I'm not sure what I could say about energy. Although, Trump is saying drill, baby, drill. And we'll see how much he can squeeze out of fracking. Quite a bit more, I think, than most people suspect. But yeah, we'll see. I think there's going to be some things going on with nuclear. I think there are. But yes, sir, I agree. All right, Noah Solomon, yuck, cognac, Armagnac is greater than cognac. Yeah, I'll drink. Yeah, sure. Any port in a storm, sailor. I don't have any problem with drinking Armagnac. Armagnac, cognac, I'm good with all of them. And it doesn't even have to be expensive cognac. Speaking of things that piss me off, like I want to say grok and think of Heinlein, but now I have to think of Twitter. The other one is that I like to wear all black, but Antifa ruined that shit for me. I'm like, it used to be being formal and fucking cool. You wear all black, They screwed it. The other one is fucking black people drinking cognac. Like, get the fuck away from my beverage. God. Anyway, nobody asked. All right. Sloppy Joe Stalin says, Semiagog, you mentioned that AI art is without God and has no soul without human creation. But if the AI slop elicits an emotional response from the audience, what say you to that? Now, Sloppy Joe Stalin is referring to back and forth that went on over on John D's Spaces over on X, which I highly recommend. John D is an excellent friend. People like Charlemagne are in there. King Pilled should drop in for one of those one day. But yeah, we were talking about AI art, and I was trying to say that art is a product of a human being with a soul, and that attempting to automate it, or to, as the people in the stream at that time were talking about, sort of move through previously created things in order to make something new of them that could be called an artistic product. That in particular would at best be like one of Geison's cut-ups. The point I was making about the soul is that, as I said, laborare est orare. To work is to pray. And to create a work is in some sense the product of the intersection of one's soul with the world and reaching out one's hand to shape the world based on what is uniquely within one's soul. And so when you ask, what if the AI elicits a reaction? Well, I think if I understand you correctly, you're coming at it from the perspective that art should be judged based on what it elicits on the part of the person who beholds it. And so if it causes a reaction in a person, again, forgive me, I'm just trying to guess from what you're saying here, and you have a character constraint when typing a question, so I don't blame it on you. But if we are to say that, a thing can be judged art based on the fact that it caused a reaction in a person, an emotional response. Well, I mean, if I eat a couple sausages in a Greek restaurant that have too much MSG and they make me feel like I want to faint and puke and I feel repulsed, that could be called an emotional reaction. And so are those two sausages in the Greek restaurant loaded with MSG art by this standard? And I'm not trying to say that's exactly what you're saying. I'm exaggerating it to make my point. So I don't mean to be unfair to you, but from my perspective, what makes it art primarily is what it is a product of, and it has to be of an individual human soul. And that will ring true on the part of that will ring true as regards anyone who encounters it or views it. So yeah, I that's what I say. That's what I say to that. Basic says, Semigog, your life sounds like an episode from Twilight Zone. Wants to read his books, but a woman doesn't allow it. Nope. I have a good woman. Best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm exceedingly fortunate not to be living in the woods by myself. It's not that she doesn't allow it. It's that I do not want to disturb her when she sleeps, because it's in my best interests for her to be well rested, because at that point she can put up with my shit. Serena Butler says she might benefit from a sleep mask. Yeah, I'm the one who I have a sleeping hat like that comes down with a little tassel, just like you'd see Scrooge, get up with. Yeah, I love sleeping in a sleepy hat, and I pull it down over my eyes. Yeah, she doesn't do that. Also, I mean, force my wife to wear a mask. Yes. But the suggestion was friendly and is welcome. Thank you. Kingpilled, that was part 2. There was an earlier live chat part. Oh, I missed something. All right, what? Given how much geopolitical we got. How many did I fucking miss? Oh, wow. Jesus Christ. Sorry, people. Regarding energy, I'm aware of extremely well-sourced rumors. We'll soon be seeing major developments that defy conventional physics in the vein of ZP, aether, non-local gravity, etc., for what it's worth. See, you keep up with that shit, and I don't. I mean, I was looking at whether or not you could repurpose compressed natural gas pipelines to carry hydrogen, and apparently you can. But yeah, I have not. See, you young fellas, you keep up with things. I've lost my neural plasticity. I don't want to learn new things anymore. I'm tired of learning new things. I'm sick of it. God damn it. That you would think that you would reach a point in your life where you didn't have to learn new things. Yes. Well, you have kept up with things very, very closely. Certainly in terms of new technological developments and things that are happening with the tech bros. So I will defer to you on that. And by the way, you need to come back on my channel. We need to talk about, all this shit sometime in the future. By the way, you were also the one who spotted an about face coming from Zuckerberg before other people did. I mentioned it in a tweet. We were talking and I was like, yeah, man, he did this shit with the Japanese swordsmith. And I was like, what the hell is this about? And you spotted that early. And the shit you laid out with Vivek and Musk and Thiel and others certainly held up. There are areas where, I could quibble with you about interpreting this or that detail, but good job, sir. All right. Who's next? Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Oh. AA says, it's so strange calling you AA. Semiagog, do you think the alt-right ultimately did more good than harm or vice versa? None of us matter. The whole dissident right, the alt-right, everybody who tweets, we don't change anything. The place where, not in any significant way, the place where we change our affairs is hearth and home, the kind of, the way we shape the people we are with. And for those of us who have children, the values we instill within them, the desire to walk the correct path, that is what matters. So, the alt-right, dissident right, whatever, I have good friends within it. We should all speak our minds, but we should also be humble as regards our assessment of what effect we have upon the world. It shall be as God wills. MG says, Semiagog, who can we trust on the right wing? No one. Everyone is a Fed. Sonny, that trademark, that's an entire doctrine. Don't bitch at me if you don't understand what I'm talking about. Sonny Jim, fuck you. How long do you think it'll take before your left eyebrow matures enough to match your right one? Well, all my life I've had very expressive eyebrows. So if I do this, it has an effect conversationally. I can use it, and it has, there are different things I can do. I can raise my eyebrow, but now it disappears. I'm soon going to look like Marilyn Manson because it's all going to be white. I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to dye it. You see me with a little fucking toothbrush full of black hair dye on my eyebrow. It's not going to happen. Tiz Dangler says, what are the chances of European nations pivoting to the East? Or does the USA have complete control of their vassal states? I don't think the United States has complete control of anything. The entire idea is preposterous. Many European nations have had tight relationships with the East for quite some time. Poland has been selling pork to China in large volume since prior to it escaping from the Soviet sphere of influence. Been turns to the East for, even now, much of Eastern Europe is getting its gas from Azerbaijan and further east, via Turkey and the rest. I don't think that there's going to be a pivot. I think about the fact that, countries like regions like what is now Hungary have long been closely tied to Russia, which has for quite some time certainly been in large part an Asian country. So, and today you have countries again like Poland that are buying equipment from South Korea, and the entire doctrine of, you should check out a stream I did. Charlemagne had quite a bit to do with that. I think 3-part series now on Poland and Pilsudski and Prometheanism. I mean, as far back certainly as 1905, in that period, there was a lot of cooperation between countries in Eastern Europe and Japan in order to bring pressure to bear upon Russia. Daniel Robinson says, Semigog, who will replace the Ayatollah, who's probably closest to kicking the can? That would be the bucket, by the way. Seems like the Shah's son is making moves among Persian diaspora in the last 2 to 3 years, showing up on YouTube. I don't know. I have not gotten into Iranian skullduggery to that extent, so I don't know. I have not, in fact, I wasn't even aware that anything is going on with the Shah's son, but I would not expect that he is welcome in Iran in any sense. All right. Parabot2 says, Semigog, what's your opinion on Republican Congressman Massey saying every Republican member of Congress has an AIPAC handler? I mean, I'd take it at face value. Though I would add to it, there are probably a number of other handlers for many, if not all of them. What I'm trying to say is I strongly doubt that Israeli handlers are the only people doing the handling. King Pilt, much appreciated. Would be honored to join you again, sir. Yes, when the subject is right, come anytime. Sloppy Joe Stalin says, Semigog, were you closer to the Sandbach side? Everyone is an artist, or in closer agreement with Mr. D, there are very few true artists. Saying that everyone is an artist just seems entirely fake and gay. So I'm going to have to just deny that. However, to whatever extent we exist at all, it is because we reflect God and the divine, the only thing with any kind of stable existence. Insofar as we all have a soul, and you can say things like the kingdom of God is within you, I would have to say that there is the potential within all of us to be an artist. But that's a very different thing to saying everyone is an artist. Also, Sandbach needs to take a bath. Okay. Sellers says, Semigog, what is the symbolism of your PFP, the white, black, and yellow triangles? Oh, well, are they out here? Are my notebooks out here? Hang on. Oh, are they here? Oh, did I put them away? Oh, I put them away, so I can't show them to you. I went through a thing where it actually sucks, but it would be very cool to show all of you this right now, but I'm not going to make you all wait on a live stream while I dig through this heap of fucking boxes. But what's the shortest way to say this? I tried to understand occult diagrams going way, way back, and I discovered that if you have a number of points evenly distributed around the circumference of a circle, there are certain possibilities. So if, for example, you make a circle and you put it equidistant 4 points around the circumference, then there are basically two shapes you can make with a unicursal hexagram, meaning a line that touches each of the points only once, with the exception of the last one that it returns to close the circuit. So with a circle that has 4 points, you can go like this to connect those points, spaced equidistant on the circumference, or you can go like this. And so I said, that's interesting. 4 gives you 2. Well, then I moved on to 6, and 6 gives you 12 options. And then I moved on to 7, which I think had 38 or 39. If I had my notebooks, I could show you. And I found them very, very interesting because you have a limited set of these figures. And one of the things that I drew from that, or one of the forms of inspiration that I drew from that, was the idea that human beings have, based on the nature of being a human being, you know, like 2 eyes to give you depth perception, 2 ears to allow you to triangulate the occurrence of a sound in space, having your spine perpendicular to the earth rather than parallel to it, all these kinds of things, you know, sexual dimorphism, opposable thumbs. You have a certain number of elements. Everybody has to deal with these same elements, but there are certain ways of, as it were, connecting the dots. And the sigil or sign that you see as my PFP over on Twitter, in any case, that's 7 points on the circumference of the circle. I found it interesting because although if you look at my homepage, so to speak, on Twitter, you'll see I use the 6-pointed circle ones that yield 12. It was interesting to me because it was a way of saying without language that if everybody, even though everyone is given the same number of points, so to speak, operates within the same constraints of manifestation, there's a range of ways that we can connect the dots. And so to me, it represents all the different ways human beings connect the dots to yield the different cultures that yield the panoply of human expression as man. So what is next? There is no symbolism otherwise. Whatever you draw from it is otherwise just a Rorschach test. People are like, it looks like a goat, it's a devil's head. Or other people are like, well, it looks like someone wearing a Ku Klux Klan hood. No, it's just a Rorschach blot, so to speak. And what people see in it says more about them than me. Red Heiny Monkey. Semiagog, should right-wingers who live in blue states remain or move? I've lived in New York my entire life, but all my family still lives here. Do as you wish, sir. I would not go near a place like New York, but I'm not from there. To me, New York is horribly alien, and it hurts me to be there. But then again, now that I live in the woods, it hurts me to even go back to a place like Atlanta when I hear the and all the honking and the gunshots and the noise and the traffic. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like my grandmother used to say, to each their own, all the way to the old lady who kissed the cow. Do what works for you. But for me, yeah, I could not do that. Second Horizon says Semiagog would have made a good alchemist. There's a certain kind of discipline necessary for engaging in experiments. I don't know. I'm screwed because I didn't learn math when I was young. So I have been banished to the humanities, and I'm forced to attempt to make what I can of my talents and my mind, having been deprived of a proper mathematical education as a lad. Yeah, what did Tim used to say? You see before you the ruins of a classical education. That's all that's left of me. Noah Solomon says New York City doesn't exist anymore. You missed it. Manhattan is the new New Jersey. Woo! Yeah, New Jersey. And that's what's crazy. I went back into my history And on the French side, my people show up in the New World in the 1660s. And I used to think that was the earliest. That was up in New Brunswick, with French colonies there. But I discovered more recently that I have people going back to 1620s, 1630s in New Jersey. And it's crazy because my father, who has the same ancestors when he was still alive, he gravitated back there for a time. And I remember canoeing on the Brandywine River. And there are parts of New Jersey that are still beautiful. I'm sure the entire area was beautiful once upon a time, but it's just full of... Ugh. Yeah, I won't go into it. I have reasons why I will never set foot in New York again. So, Seller, Semigog, have you ever discussed your religious affiliation? Sadly, I have no affiliation. None. There's a fair amount of syncretism, as embarrassed as I am to say it. I did do the Gen X shit and earlier shit of, seeking, this sort of theosophical take of thinking that you can, and indeed being able to look at different religions in different places to see how they manifest certain truths. But yeah, I don't buy theosophy. When I was a lad, I was into what's called the occult. I was baptized a Catholic, but never went any further than that. Although out of all the Christian churches, I mean, the Catholic, it looks like a fucking church instead of a counseling center. I mean, I got into heterodox Muslim esotericism in my youth as well. Well, what is relative to now my youth. I think it's probably enough to say that I do believe in God, and I do believe in a soul, the soul, souls, and I do believe in afterlife, as it were, and I do believe in judgment. But I think that God's mercy is infinite. And so the judgment I have to fear is my judgment of myself, greater self relative to a smaller one. Yeah, and to get into it any further would take up far more time than we have here. And it's also in very poor taste to talk about religion when drunk. Except with one's closest friends in the greatest seriousness. Seamus O'Blaine says Semigog is too Gen X for religion. Oh no. Oh no. Let's see here. Glenn Harrington saying nice things. Thank you. And we've got about 5 minutes left here. I can take a couple more questions. Sloppy Joe Stalin says, Semigog, did you have any thoughts on the Stormy Waters Pete Q stream where they went over the soul? Pete's a friend. I don't know much about Stormy. And I did not see that one, but now I'm going to go look for it. Thank you for mentioning it. Mounted Patrolman says, Semigog, did you see the Library of Theosophy supposedly burned down? Disregarding Theosophy, there were a lot of unique texts there, sadly. Yeah. Burning libraries. God protect me from fire. Or from a tree falling on me. I hate sitting over here in the corner of the shop because there's this one big ass tree and it's leaning like this. And it's right over there. And the guy I bought the place from has a bunch of logs piled where the roots would be on the opposite side, presumably to balance it. But it's standing. It hadn't fallen yet. We'll see. That'd be funny if I just died when a tree fell on me. Make sure I compose my epitaph before that happens. All right. Oh, I have a new epitaph, by the way. I posted it on Twitter if you guys haven't seen it. In the old days when I used to chase women a lot, I thought my epitaph was going to be, gee, he got laid a lot, which was appropriately pathetic. And even at the time, I thought that would be my epitaph. Then the next one was, after, failing to get things to anchor properly in a relationship, I thought my epitaph, and for other reasons, most suitably should be unrealistic expectations. But I have a new one. I refuse to be rushed. I think that'd just be a fucking awesome epitaph. So you guys have heard it. If I croak here in the immediate future, you need to get in touch with the parties involved and insist until this gets updated or I say otherwise. It should be, I refuse to be rushed. Lord Inquisitor says, Rorschach tests, I always see an ink blot. I could look at one and see a butterfly, or I could see a bee. If it's one, how can it be the other? But ink blots can be anything. Yeah. In the old days, I used to dance on this piece of plywood behind me, which has sort of a mottled surface, and in different times, all sorts of faces would emerge from it. There's quite a bit to using. Well, I mean, look at the different types of mantic arts to be attempting to see the future or divine in some sense something, even if it's not the future. You have like pyromancy, you've got hydromancy, right? What are you doing? You're looking at a shifting, changing shape or set of forms, and it gives your interior some sort of traction to project a shape and therefore reflect it back to yourself and deliver it from those parts of yourself that you are unconscious of to your conscious mind. The Rorschach is just something similar. It's like tripping and looking at the surface of your skin and seeing the patterns that appear. I used to attempt in my teenage years to draw them. And I found those old drawings attempting to capture the seemingly regular geometric patterns. And then as soon as you try to draw them, you can see that they're fucking constantly moving. Yes, there is something of the eye that sees, that projects itself. Okay, Tiz Dangler says, just wanted to say thank you for all the streams and insight over the years. You're much appreciated. Thank you. Very kind of you to say, and it does look like we are coming to the end. Charlemagne says, good stream. Thank you very much, sir. Oh, putain de merde. Architect of Demise says, oh, God, this is going to be embarrassing. À quel point ton français s'est amélioré depuis le mariage? See, I can try to pronounce that, but I can't understand but 30% of it. Fucking French is hard, man. Absolutely ridiculous, man. Fucking ridiculous. So get back to me on that. I'm trying to learn. I can say je suis innocent, and I can say arrête, and I can say va te faire foutre, and I could say ah bon, ah bon, ah bon, ah bah fin, ah bah. Anyway, French is an endlessly fucking amusing language. Very strange people, very strange language. Fucking impossible. All right, I have to go. Fuck, I've already passed the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to respond to Proud White Settler. He says, I need to get a Stetson. Recommend the open road with a 3-inch brim. Yeah, well, I have some hats. The Stetsons, I'm not quite old enough yet for a Stetson. I'm not quite old enough for one of those. I do want a brimmed hat. I wear the damn boonie caps. Yeah, I have to give that some thought. Damn it, I missed the 2-hour mark. See, if I'm under 2 hours, then it will upload automatically. Yeah, to the other platforms, but screw it. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all very, very much. I appreciate the support I continue to get from those few people who support the channel financially directly. I thank you all for watching. Buy my poetry book, links in the description below. Buy my sci-fi book, Vinculum, link in the description below. Please do, everyone, please fucking go follow me over on Substack, and I will write more. And I will be back to talk to Hitman on the 21st. And I'm also thinking that I may take the articles that I posted on Substack and just read them out here. I also expect that I am going to be doing a stream, if it can be arranged, with friends who have joined me previously for some discussions about the Caucasus and Armenia and the rest. I expect, if we can make it happen, that we will be talking about the defense or more broad group of agreements that will be commemorated in some sort of a treaty or signed formal agreement between Russia and Iran coming up shortly before the inauguration. So yes, that will happen. That will happen soon as well. Until then, I should practice my French, but I will not. I will just say to all of you, I am very happy that all of you were here. And I am Semiogog, and I am out.